Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are going to learn from Umi Matzis, which is over here. Make a circle on the side. It's right near the Taisvis Vizeh. Until Vilis Nikula. Until right here. So make a circle on the side here. Until here. Let's recap a little bit what we learned until now. The Mishnah, it says that if a person says, if two people found an item on the floor, they come to Beis Din holding a talis. This one says, I found it, and the other person also says, I found it. Then the Mishnah says that, or they said, each one says that it totally belongs to him. So the Gemara had asked, is it one case or two cases? There are two expressions brought down in the Mishnah. Is it one case that person says, I found it, and therefore it's totally mine? Or is the Mishnah speaking about two separate cases? So at our point, the Gemara answers, the A is for answer, that it's one case. That person says, I found it, and therefore it totally belongs to me. Then the Gemara had asked, if so, why does the Mishnah use two expressions? Why does the Mishnah bring down these both two tainas that a person may say, I found it and it totally belongs to me? The Mishnah could have just said one. So the Gemara answered, the reason why the Mishnah says both is because if the Mishnah would have just said, Ani mitzasiya, I found it first, we would think that a person sometimes says, I found it by seeing an object. When a person sees something, they say, oh, look what I found on the floor. I found it. But they not necessarily they actually acquired it, and it really is theirs. So that's why the Mishnah continues and says, that not only I found it by seeing it, because seeing something does not allow us to acquire it, but he actually also said, Kula shali, that it's totally mine because I acquired it. So at this point we say that when a person says Ani mitzasiya, I found something, we can assume it means he found it just by seeing it on the floor, but not necessarily acquiring it. And on this, the Gemara is going to ask a question, which we're going to see today. Let's go to our Gemara. Asks the Gemara, Umi matzis amret mai mitzasiya risiya? Would we be able to say, would we think that when the Mishnah says mitzasiya, it means that he just found it by seeing it and not actually picking it up? Can we say that mitzasiya means just by seeing it? V'ha'amar Ravnai says that when the pasuk says umatzasa, that's a word of the pasuk, the asal yade mashma, it's specifically talking about when the word matzasa doesn't mean when a person seeing it. It means matzasa, that a person actually is holding on and acquired an object, not just by seeing it. So how can we say that when it says our Mishnah mitzasiya, we would think that it means a person saw it? Ravnai says specifically matzasa means that a person is holding it and not just looking at it. So this is the Gemara's question on what we just stated. So the question begins over here and ends over here. Now we're going to the answer of the Gemara. The Gemara answers in, you're right. When it says umitzasa dikra, when it says the word umitzasa in the pasuk, the asal yade mashma, it actually means that he acquired it, not just by seeing it, but he actually is holding on to the object. Umihu, however, Tana, when the Tana writes the expression matzasa or mitzasiya, lishna da'alma nakat, he uses the lashon, the same expression that people use, the way people speak. And we see umidachazilei, and when a person sees something, Amar ana ashkachis, I found it. We know many times if a person is looking for something and he finds it, he said, oh, I found it. Mitzasiya, I found it. Va'afagav, even though it never actually came to his hands, B'riya ba'alma kani. We would think, if it would just say mitzasiya, that the Tana who wrote the Mishnah is using the expressions that people use, and we would think that person could be kind of something just by saying it, even though it never came to his hands, he's not holding on to it. Therefore, Tani kula shali, therefore the Mishnah says the second expression to teach us that B'riya ba'alma loy kanila, that just by seeing it, just by seeing an object, he's not kind of, it actually needs to arrive in his hands, he needs to be holding on to it. And this is the end of this lesson.